Good evening, guys.
Hey, everybody.
All right, tonight we're going to be talking about travel taxes. Welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor Live Sunday video. And we get a lot of questions about, I guess one common concern for new travelers or people interested in traveling is how taxes work, how you file your taxes. Do you have to go to a CPA? Is it really difficult? It certainly seems difficult because, anything harder than getting a W-2 from one employer scares some people. So tonight we want to talk about taxes, about how travel taxes work, things like filing in multiple states, what deductions we do, or what we use, how we file our taxes, and go over some of the ins and outs of that. But first, I want to say that we are not professionals, so we are just giving advice on what we do. We're not giving specific advice for any of you guys, just kind of going through the process of how we do our own taxes.
Yeah, we're not tax professionals. We are professional physical therapists, but
Yeah.
not tax professionals. So we're not experts in this area by any means, but we just want to give you some insight based on what we've done and what we've learned.
So if you guys have any specific questions about your own situation, definitely reach out to a CPA or a tax professional of some sort. So Whitney's going to introduce us, and then we'll jump into the topic. Hopefully keep it kind of short because it's the fourth quarter of that playoff game. I want to see the end of it. But I'm going to get this shared, and she'll introduce us.
All right, hey everyone. So a lot of you guys may know us, but for those that don't, my name is Whitney Aiken.
And I'm Jared Kazaza.
And we are both traveling physical therapists, and we've been traveling for about 4.5 years now. And we run the site Travel Therapy Mentor, where we educate and provide mentorship to current and future travel therapists on various travel therapy topics. So like Jared said, every Sunday pretty much we try to do these videos on Facebook Live giving you some information about a different travel therapy topic. So this week our friend Jeff Camara asked us to talk about filing taxes, and I see that Jeff is on with us live. Hey Jeff. So I know this is a common question that a lot of people have, is just, is it really complicated to file taxes as a traveler? And I was concerned about that too, because actually I had never filed taxes before becoming a travel therapist, because we both started traveling right out of school, our first year as new grads, as DPTs. And prior to that, I had never really earned a significant amount of work income, so I'd never had to file taxes. So to me, the whole tax filing thing was new in general. So Jared had to teach me a lot, and I had to do some research to figure out how the whole thing worked. And turns out it's actually not that complicated, is the good news for most of us. So with that said, we'll kind of talk to you a little bit tonight about what we do and what we've learned. If y'all are tuning in, I see we have quite a few people on that are current travelers. Hey Caroline, a couple others here. So if y'all are tuning in, just leave us a comment below and let us know who you are. Are you a current traveler? Are you a therapist that's thinking about traveling? Are you a student that's thinking about traveling? And if you are a current traveler, like I know Jeff and Caroline are, if you guys could let us know, what have you done in the past for filing taxes? Before we jump into a little bit more about the topic, we wanted to also do a couple announcements about things that we have going on coming up.
We have 2 meetups coming up. So this coming weekend in Raleigh, North Carolina, we have a meetup at a brewery there. We have an event on our Facebook page, the page you're on right now watching this video. So if you guys are in the Raleigh area, surrounding area, and want to come to that event, there'll be free food, free drinks, and should be a lot of fun. So there's that coming up next week, and then about a month from today at CSM in Denver, we're having a meetup there. And again, there's an event on this page that you can RSVP to, and there's going to be limited spaces for that one because there's a lot of therapists in Denver for CSM. So any travelers, current travelers, or therapists interested in traveling, or students, third-year students interested in traveling, come meet up with us. Free drinks. It should be a lot of fun.
Yep, so if you guys are interested in any of those events, feel free to send us a message or leave us a comment. There are event invitations for both the Denver CSM Travel Therapy Meetup as well as the Raleigh, North Carolina Travel Therapy Meetup if you're interested in that. And again, it's for current travelers, any clinicians, therapists that are thinking about traveling, or students that are in their last year of school, so like third-year DPT students, second-year OT and SLP students, and so forth. So let us know. And then in addition to our meetups, we are also doing a giveaway, and the winners of the giveaway will be announced on Wednesday. So the details of that giveaway, we're giving away a $25 Airbnb gift card. The details of that are on our page if you would like to enter to win. We'll be picking the winner on Wednesday. Caroline said, what is CSM? It's the Combined Sections Meeting. It's the National Physical Therapy Conference, basically.
Yeah, it's the biggest physical therapy conference of the year. It's in Denver this year.
Yeah. So mostly physical therapists we're anticipating, and physical PTAs, as well as PT and PTA students is who we're anticipating at our CSM Denver. The CSM meetup Leanne asked about, we're doing a happy hour event, and the details are on the event on our Facebook page. So you can go to our Facebook page, Travel Therapy Mentor, and there's an event link on there, and I can also send you more of the details. It will be on Friday, February the 14th. We're still working out the details as far as the venue, but we'll get that information posted soon.
Yeah, basically just hanging out, talking, probably all kinds of rousing tax and finance conversations if you want.
And there will also be free drinks provided at that, and there will be a raffle at that one as well. So lots of fun things coming up. So we have a few comments here. Hi, Leanne. Thanks for joining. A traveler on her second contract. Tessa is a current traveler, and this will be her first time filing taxes as a traveler. Hey, Evan, traveler for about a year and a half. It'll be the second time filing taxes. He says he used TurboTax last year and was not impressed with their knowledge. Okay. Of travel therapy. Yeah, so that makes sense because not a lot of people know, and we'll talk a little bit more about that.
Yep.
Not a lot of people understand what it is that we do. Hey, Naya, and hey, George. Thank y'all for joining.
Yep. Okay, so for taxes, the majority of travelers hire a professional. And if you are someone that does not want to research, does not want to put in the time to try to figure things out yourself, then that's probably a good way to go. If you were in a W-2 job and you already took your taxes to someone else, then chances are you're not going to put in the effort needed to figure it out on your own. And that's probably the safest thing to do for anyone. But with that being said, I've always done ours, and it's not that difficult. I use TaxAct. I think I have used TurboTax 1 year, but usually I use TaxAct. And in terms of cost, as travel therapists, one of the big benefits of filing yourself is that if your adjusted gross income is below, I think it's $59,000 per year, you can go to the IRS Free File website. So I just Google IRS Free File, and I've filed our taxes for free for the last 4 years, both federal and state. All of it's free. So that's a great thing as travelers. If you are willing to put in the effort to try to learn how to file your taxes on your own, then you can go to that website. And they have a list of providers you can choose from on the Free File website that'll be like TurboTax, TaxSlayer, TaxAct. I think there's like 10 of them. And all of them have income limits. If you make lower than that amount, then it's free for you. So if you are going to do it yourself, go through one of those links because almost every traveler has income below that. So if you go to the regular website, you have to pay full price. But if you go through that link, it's free. So that's definitely worth it.
So the next thing we want to talk about is just choosing what type of filing you're going to do will also help determine if it's going to be something you're going to do on your own versus whether something may be more complicated that you want to take to a CPA.
Yeah. One big reason to go to a CPA, if you're on the fence, like say you might want to figure it out, but you're not really sure, is if you think you might itemize. And in the past, it would have made a lot more sense before last year to go to a CPA because there was a lot of people itemizing, travelers itemizing, especially travelers that have a home mortgage that they were writing off for their tax home. But as of last year, the standard deduction was nearly doubled. So very few people are itemizing, probably less than 5%, I believe. I saw some statistics about last year not long ago. And I think it's less than 5% of people itemize at this point. It's mostly people taking the standard deduction. And that significantly simplifies your taxes because then you don't have to have knowledge of all these different deductions. You just go with the standard deduction and it's pretty simple. So if you are in a situation where you might have an excessive amount of itemized deductions, so say you have a huge home mortgage and you're paying a lot of interest there that might be deductible, and it might go over $12,000 as a single individual, or say you have huge charitable contributions, then maybe you would consider going to a CPA because they might have some knowledge on deductions that you wouldn't get from free software or from TaxAct or anything like that. But for, like I said, for the vast majority of people, not just travelers, but everyone, are taking the standard deduction, which simplifies things and it makes it a lot easier to do on your own.
Yeah. There's a couple other things that might make it a little bit more complicated to where you might not want to do it on your own. If you're going to have a lot of 1099 income or income from other sources, So say like for Jared and I, we sign up for a lot of bank account and credit card bonuses, and some of those count as 1099 income.
The credit cards don't, but the bank accounts do.
And then if you have income from any other streams, so say if you had a side business or some other way that you're earning 1099 income, you might also have all these 1099 forms coming in addition to your W-2 forms. And now you're like, gosh, I don't know where all these numbers go, when you're filing, and that might get a little more complicated for you. However, we've actually still been able to, file ours, and I say we, Jared does most of it, and he helps me a lot. But, and for the most part, you can still do it, but that just might be something that if you feel like you have so many forms and you just don't know where all the information goes, it might make it a little more complicated where you want to seek out help.
Yeah, if you guys are brand new to taxes and you've never used any of this online software, the idea of taxes is very daunting to most people, and it was for me too, up until my first year after graduation. So after grad school, I was like 25, I think. I'd never really filed my taxes on my own, and I was scared about it, but I like to research things, so I went ahead and researched it. I started plugging numbers into the tax software, and the tax software these days, or if you haven't done it in a while, tax software is extremely good. It basically walks you through every step of the process, and it tries to ask you everything about any potential deductions you might have. But basically, it asks you the exact numbers that are on your W-2. It asks you, did you contribute to retirement accounts? Did you have any qualifying life events or anything like that? So it walks you through everything, and it's very easy to use. It's very user-friendly. So the tax software, you shouldn't be scared of that. I can't think of many people that wouldn't be able to walk themselves through that in a very basic situation.
Yeah. The other situation in which you might not feel comfortable doing it on your own is if you are a travel therapist that's working as an independent contractor, which we've done videos and articles on this in the past. It's not very common. So most of you that are watching this are probably more than likely going through a travel agency, in which case you're a W-2 employee of that agency. Now, if you decided to be an independent contractor where you are working as a 1099 employee, just independently going out and setting up your own contracts and negotiating them with facilities, it could be a little bit more complicated in that situation. So in that case, again, you may, because you're kind of like your own employer at that point, you may want to go to a tax professional to have you help prepare them. But with that said, we want to move forward with talking about how the process works for the majority of us who are going to be W-2 employees, and the majority of you guys watching probably don't have a lot of other things that are going into this. It's probably just mainly your W-2 and then a couple other items that we're going to talk about.
Yeah, so let's say you're just a normal traveler. Everything's pretty simple. You maybe you work with one or two companies during the year. Pretty simple return. So what's the difference between a travel therapist return and, like, say, a regular permanent employee return? There's really not a whole lot of difference. You get W-2 from your company, from your travel company, just like you would a normal company that you would work for, say a hospital system or whatever. They send you a W-2 just like that. If you have no other, if you're taking that standard deduction and you don't have itemized deductions related to traveling, which most of us don't, and the other thing, recent tax law changes, this was last year as well, Tax Cut and Jobs Act, personal employment expenses were eliminated, which means things like people used to write off things like buying work clothes sometimes, or there was a bunch of different deductions that people would creatively use to decrease their income.
Didn't they do, like, sometimes mileage in excess of what they were being allowed by their company? And
there was some situations where I know that some CPAs or some tax professionals were saying that you could write off the mileage when you get to your travel location, so like your temporary home, and then the mileage from the temporary home to your workplace, back and forth, they were writing that off. But anyway, no longer, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
So most people are having that standard deduction. So the only thing that really separates a normal return from a traveler return is if you work in multiple states. And so that was the part that I got hung up on in the beginning, and it took a little bit of research.
Multiple states and multiple companies sometimes makes a difference.
Multiple companies makes a difference, but it's you just get another W-2. It's just another form to add on to your return. It's not a huge difference.
So basically, if you guys are new to this, you're going to only get a W-2 from your travel therapy agency, not from the facility that you worked at. So if you decide to only work with one recruiter and one agency, and you take all your jobs throughout the year with them, you'll only receive the one W-2 from that staffing agency. You're
Yeah.
not going to receive it from all the different hospitals and clinics and everything you worked in. So that simplifies things.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think about that, but yes. So I have talked to some people that think that because you move, say you worked in 4 different facilities throughout the year, that you're going to get 4 W-2s, and that's going to cause headache. But that's not the case. If you worked for the same company throughout the whole year, you get 1 W-2 with all of your wages for all those facilities.
Yeah. So you might have more than 1 W-2 if, say, you switched between travel agencies for a different job. But again, it's not that complicated because then you just take the information from the 2 W-2s, and then would you add it when it prompts you for the amount? Because basically on these software systems, it prompts you. It says enter information from box whatever.
It's very easy. So the way that the software that I've used a couple of them. Almost always the way they work is it'll say add 1 W-2. Do you have any more? And then you can add another W-2. It's very, very simple.
Okay. So it walks you through it 1 W-2 at a time. So it's not
Yep.
like you have to actually do the math on your own over here and then put the numbers in.
Yep. So filing in multiple states. So that's really the differentiating factor, the thing that makes people nervous, and takes a little bit of research. It's not that difficult. Each state is different. So your home state. So some states have reciprocity agreements with each other, and a lot of times those are neighboring states, which means that sometimes if you live in one state and you work in another state. So some people live like right on the state line. They might work in a different state than they live in. Some states have reciprocity agreements, meaning that you don't have to pay state taxes. I believe it's in the state that you're working in. And again, I'm not a tax professional, so if you're in a situation where your state does have reciprocity, I haven't dealt with that much. But I believe that it's a state you're working in, you wouldn't have to pay taxes in that state, and you would just pay in your home state. Virginia, we've mostly filed Virginia, North Carolina, Massachusetts, and we didn't have to deal much with reciprocity there. So basically the way it works, Virginia is our home state. Say we take an assignment in Virginia part of the year, and then we take an assignment in North Carolina, which we've done that pretty much the last 3 or 4 years now. The way we would file our taxes there is that we would file as residents of Virginia and non-residents of North Carolina. So our wages, when you're working in any state, you're taxed in that state while you're employed. At tax time, you have to pay wages or pay taxes to your home state as well. Most situations, unless there's some weird situation with your home state, you'll get credit for the taxes you paid to the state you were working in towards your home state taxes. So, for example, let's say Virginia taxes are 5%, state income taxes. North Carolina taxes are 4%, right? Let's say we worked in one assignment in North Carolina, and we were paying that 4% tax to North Carolina. When we go to file our Virginia state taxes, we file as residents of Virginia, non-residents of North Carolina. We would have to pay that additional 1%. So we would get the credit, that 4% credit that we paid towards North Carolina, applied to our Virginia return. And then we would only owe that additional 1%. Does that make sense?
Just a second. So Josh said the video feed is cutting out. Is anybody else noticing that? 'Cause I can double check our connection real quick and just make sure. If I minimize it, will it still be going?
Yep, I don't know.
So let me know if anybody else is having trouble with the video. I just want to make sure our internet is not cutting out because we are using our hotspot in the camper, and sometimes that happens. So let us know. Hopefully it's all connected, but can anybody else let us know if you're hearing us okay? But basically what Jared is saying here, the important thing to know here is a lot of people get confused. They think, Brianna, yes to which? Oh, it's going in and out.
Oh, man.
Okay, let's pause for just a sec. I'm going to check our internet connection, and I don't think we'll get disconnected.
What are you gonna check?
I'm going to close the...
All right.
We are back. Can you guys hear us now? Let us know, because
Apparently
I think,
our Wi-Fi disconnected temporarily.
Yeah, so I was just on data, and so that's why I think it was going in and out. So if anybody can let us know if it's working correctly now, we will carry on with where we left off. Okay, great.
All right, so
sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about all that.
So
basically what I was saying there is that if you work in a state, you're always paying taxes to the state you're working in while you're working. But you have to make up for that to your home state. They want their taxes as well once you go to file your taxes. So if you're working in a state with a lower tax rate than your home state, then at the end of the year when you file taxes, you have to make up that difference. So you get a credit towards your home state. So a lot of people have this impression that when you work in two states, you pay taxes to both of them. And that's theoretically true, but it's not that you pay double taxes. It's that you get a credit for the lower, basically you get a credit for one state to the other. So yeah, in the example of North Carolina, if it was 4%, Virginia's 5%. We've already paid 4% to North Carolina. We only have to make up that 1% difference to Virginia. Okay? In a different example, let's say North Carolina had a higher tax rate than Virginia. We pay 5% to North Carolina. Virginia's only 4%. We get a credit from North Carolina for our Virginia taxes, so it actually completely offsets what we owe to Virginia, and we don't owe any additional amount. So even though you are paying taxes in two states, you're not paying double taxes. You're getting a credit for that in almost all cases that I know of. I know there are some weird examples, so make sure that your state is not one of those weird examples. And there's some states that don't work well together, and in some cases you do pay double taxes, but that's I think a rare situation.
Yeah, and it's important to know too, if you try to, like, say you move your tax home, or you work in a state, or your tax home is in a state that has no state income tax. If Florida, like if your home state was in Florida, or is it Tennessee also that doesn't have state income taxes?
I think there's 7 states that don't have state income taxes. The way that would work, so say your home state's Florida, and you're working in North Carolina again, and let's say that's 5%. You would pay that 5% tax to North Carolina. When you go to Florida, obviously you don't owe any taxes, but you still have to pay it to North Carolina.
Yeah, so unfortunately you don't get off the hook there for the state that you worked in.
Unless your home state is 0% and also the state you're working is 0%. Obviously that's perfect. And then another example here is, let's say that your home state is North Carolina again, and we'll say that's 5%. Florida is 0%, and you work in Florida, you don't pay any state taxes while you're working, but then when you go to file your taxes, you're going to owe that full 5% to North Carolina.
Yes, I think that's one is a super bummer, because say, I have a friend that's like a Virginia resident like we are, and she has taken a lot of contracts in Florida, and she was thinking, wow, I don't have to pay any taxes on all this money I just made for 3 months or 6 months down in Florida. Unfortunately, you still are on the hook for taxes in your home state. You're not going to get out of that. Yeah,
so that's the part that's a little confusing. People get like, they think they're not going to understand that. Most tax software that I've seen, they make that very simple. It'll say like, what state are you a resident in, and you choose what state return you want to do. You go ahead and fill that out, and then it'll say, did you work in any other states? You say yes, and then you'd be a non-resident of that state because you worked there but you didn't live there. That's our temporary travel assignment. That's not our new home or anything, so you're a non-resident there. And so it's really not that complicated. Non-resident in the state you're working in, resident in your home state.
Yeah, Lena said, what if your home state is Florida? So that's where Jared said, if your home state is Florida, you'll still have to pay taxes in the state that you worked in.
Unless it's a state that doesn't have income taxes.
Unless you go work in Tennessee or Washington or Texas, apparently.
Texas for sure.
So yeah, you still have to pay taxes to the one that you worked in. You're gonna have to pay taxes one way or the other.
So don't be discouraged, and don't pay a lot of money to a professional. I mean, I'm not saying don't go to a professional. If at all you're uncertain, do it. And there's no downsides of that besides the cost. But if it's just the multiple state returns that you're worried about, it took me maybe, I would say, an hour or maybe an hour and a half of research, pretty thorough research, to make sure I understood that. And I did that the first year, and then that I've just done that every year since then, and there's been no problem. It's been great, and we saved a decent amount of money doing that.
So right now, as tax time is approaching us, and you guys are preparing to file your taxes, whether or not you're going to file them on your own, or you're going to have someone help you to prepare them, we want to tell you kind of what things you need to be looking for in the mail and what things you need to gather. So here, I think it's by January 31st, isn't it? They have to send all your W-2s. It's sometime in January they have to send all your W-2s. So check in the mail. You should get a W-2 from each travel agency that you worked with. If you had any other source of income that was 1099 income, you should get a 1099 statement from each of those places. There are certain places that won't send a 1099 in the mail. Some of them are going paperless. Like we've had some bank account bonuses that we signed up for.
You do have to watch that.
Where if you knew you signed up for a bank account and received a bonus, they're going to tax you on that bonus as a 1099 income. So you
Sometimes
need to
they'll email it to you, but sometimes they won't. They'll just put it on their website, and you have to go check your messages there.
So go check your documents on, like, say if you signed up for like a Chase bank account or a Wells Fargo or whatever, go check within your Wells Fargo
And that's not just
account.
bonus, that applies also to interest. If you have a savings account that got interest throughout the year.
Interest. If you receive something like, as travelers, sometimes we might receive like a referral bonus. You should get a 1099 in the mail for receiving any kind of bonus or extraneous income that's not your regular W-2 income. So check in the mail or check your accounts to make sure you gather all your W-2s, print those out. So your 1099s. So gather your W-2s, gather your 1099s. If you are still paying on student loans, you want to gather whatever document that states how much interest you paid that year. Usually your student loan servicer will send you a letter that says this is the amount that you paid in student loan interest this year, and you can deduct that. Or I think it's a credit. It's not really a deduction so much, 'cause it's not like you're itemizing. You just get a credit for it.
Yeah, it still applies even if you take the standard deduction.
Okay, if you have a personal IRA, or if you have a 401k, you should have a statement for your IRA or your 401k.
If it's traditional, yeah.
That shows that. So you want to have paperwork on that, because sometimes they'll ask you, did you contribute to an IRA or a 401k this year?
Because all that decreases your taxable income.
Okay, so you need that information.
So, real quick, all that stuff I said about states, did that make sense? Sometimes I feel like I just say a lot of things and it doesn't really make sense, and I stumble over my words, and I'm like, all right, I'm done with that.
So let us
if
know
that
if
didn't make any sense, I can try to explain it better. Also, if you guys are getting value from this, please like the video. The more people that like and hearts on the video, the more people see it, and hopefully the more information we can spread. That's always helpful to us.
Yep, so we'd appreciate that. So, yeah, so W-2s, 1099s, anything about a 401k, an IRA, student loan deductions, student loan interest payments. Again, if you have a mortgage and you're doing an itemizing, you might have to collect documentation about your mortgage interest. I think that's everything as far as paperwork goes. If you were to itemize, of course, any charitable contributions, that sort of thing, if you were itemizing. Again, if you choose to itemize, it's going to get a little more on the complicated side. But if you're a traditional traveler, traditional W-2 employee, it's not that complicated. Most likely, you're just going to have 1 or 2 W-2s, maybe a 1099, maybe a 401k statement.
And to be honest, if I had 2 states now that I've done it a few years, if I had just Virginia and North Carolina like we normally do, we're normally bouncing back and forth between those 2 states, and I didn't have any 1099s because I make our life more complicated with all these bonuses and things. But if it was just 2 states, 1 W-2, or maybe we switch companies, 2 W-2s, we had our 401k contributions, I could probably do that return. I could probably get that done in an hour or less. So that just gives you kind of an idea of it's not that complicated. It doesn't take that much time.
And it literally won't let you proceed like if you don't enter the information in the right box. So, I know Jared has helped me significantly with it, but I've sat there and gone through everything and I'm like, wow, it just says enter line A from your W-2, enter line D. It's
so simple.
Really
Whitney
simple.
can do it.
Shut up. And I mean, anyway, he's kind of right. Because I really didn't have any knowledge on this kind of stuff. So, if I can do it, you guys can too.
Yep.
But again, when in doubt, if y'all are not sure about this, if you feel like you have too many things going on, if you have a side business, that sort of thing, it might be something to which you want to go to a tax professional. I know someone mentioned before that they felt like the people at maybe TurboTax or H&R Block, when you go to your local town, may or may not know, and that's probably true. So what we would recommend, maybe get somebody a little more reputable in your town, or when in doubt, consult with TravelTax. So if you guys haven't heard of TravelTax, we actually did a video, and we can link to the YouTube video, an interview with Joe Smith at TravelTax. He is a former respiratory therapist, I believe, travel respiratory therapist, who later became a tax professional. And he runs a business called TravelTax, and they do free phone consultations. So if you have questions about your tax home or different things like that, they'll do a free phone consultation just to give you some basic information. They also do tax preparation. So if you're unsure, you can go on their website and look at their rates. It depends on how many states you have to file as to how much they charge. And they have a simple form for you to fill out. They have a place for you to upload all your documents. They do it remotely. They're located in South Carolina, but that doesn't matter. They do it for all 50 states and Canada. So you just upload your documents to them remotely. They take care of it. I know that there are other travel therapists that use them, and they're
Yeah.
very knowledgeable as far as working with the travel professional. So
One thing I would say is that if you are on the fence about it, and you're not sure if you could do it on your own, and you know what I'm saying is, it's not that complicated, but you're not sure if you could do it. What I would do is, say this is your first year as a traveler, what I would do is I would try to do it myself. I would put in all the information, not actually file the return, but see what it says, and then have a CPA, someone like Travel Tax, or you know, you could go to a local place probably. I mean, like I said, it's not that much different than a normal return if you're taking the standard deduction besides the multiple states. And most tax preparers will know how to do that. And have them just like look over it, or you could just have them start from scratch and see if you get the same number. And if you do, then you can have more confidence going into the next year. So I would say that is a good way. And to me, it's kind of fun to input all the numbers and play around with different scenarios. I know that's weird, but who knows?
you're
Maybe
weird,
you're,
so,
yeah,
you know.
maybe there's some other weird people out there.
So with that said, do you guys have questions? And Jeff, I definitely want to know if you have questions, because Jeff is the one who asked us to make this video
I
tonight.
know we have some questions.
Yeah, we'll read off some questions here. Jeff wanted us to make this video tonight just to maybe check and see if he was on the right page. So we'd love to hear if we answered all your questions, if y'all have additional questions for us. But again, we are not tax professionals. We're just kind of giving you advice based on what we understand. If you really have detailed questions, it's best to go to a tax professional, and the best one we know is Travel Tax.
For sure. Definitely the most knowledgeable. So Brandon says, have you guys heard that you don't necessarily have to have your own home or apartment? Meaning if I live with someone in their home and showed proof of paying for living there, would I still be okay if I was audited, or would the IRS frown on that? Yeah, I mean, as long as you have your own space, both at your home address, your permanent residence, and at your travel assignment, a room at least that is yours, that you're renting, you have proof of income or proof of payment and all that. Every tax professional we've consulted with, that's fine.
Yeah.
So you don't have to have an entire apartment. You just need a room in a house that you have access to the common areas. And so yeah, I mean, that's a great way to save money. That's what Whitney and I both do. So that's what I recommend.
Brandon's question is more about tax homes,
Yeah,
which we
tax
didn't
homes.
necessarily cover in this video. We have a whole separate video up talking about tax homes and a couple articles about it as well. This video is mainly about filing taxes, filing tax returns as a traveler. But
if you guys are interested in tax homes, we can link to that video or to the article.
We've got articles, we've got videos. We did an entire hour and a half interview with Joe Smith, who's the owner and operator at Travel Tax. So he answered a lot of the other tax type questions that we have, but this was more just about obviously filing taxes, which is coming up between now and April. Okay, Calvin says, I have a huge win in Las Vegas. Okay, so some earnings or winnings from Vegas, and that's my only problem.
What a problem to have.
I know, right? More money, more problems. Never thought they'll tax you with what you win and not with what you lost.
Oh yeah. Well, so that is interesting. You definitely have to account for wins, but you can deduct losses there too. The weird part about losses is that there's not a lot of proof of what you lost. So I'm not exactly sure how it works, but I know that you can deduct your losses against winnings. But definitely check with a tax professional on that, because you might save some money. If you have a big win and you also have had big losses in the past year, then maybe that will offset it.
So that actually would make it a little more complicated. One year that we filed, I won some kind of contest, and it was like $1,000 or $2,000. I won this contest, and when we were filing my taxes on Tax Act and then Jared's taxes, they would have otherwise been about the same. But because I had this income, there was no place to put it, and they almost wanted to file it as I was a sole proprietor of some sort. I had owned my own business, and it was asking me all these questions that were about did I have employees and all this stuff, and I'm like, no, I won a contest, why? But anyway, because I had that one little extra section that was complicated, I had to pay $20 to have mine filed, whereas Jared's were $0. So it was kind of annoying.
Yep.
So if you have anything weird like that, congratulations that you won, but it might make it slightly more complicated.
George and Leanne said that the explanation made sense, so thanks. I wasn't rambling too bad. Ryan said he's using Travel Tax this year. That's awesome. Definitely, for your first year, I know it's your first year traveling. It's not a bad thing to do. Like I said, I would try to do it yourself. Just put in the information. It's not that difficult. See if you get the same numbers as Travel Tax, and then maybe next year you can try to do it yourself. Naya said, I had awesome experience with H&R Block in South Carolina. I think it really just depends on the person that you get in the store, or if you're going to a store or facility or whatever it is. Some are going to be very knowledgeable. Some might have 20 years of experience, and some might have just started this year. So there's going to be, I'm sure, very hit or miss with those kind of companies.
So Josh has an interesting suggestion here. Josh says, you guys should make a video about when it's time to buy a house or make a large purchase, when the loan officer sees how much your gross income is and how you can still get a loan.
So we don't have any experience with that, but I can tell you, I do know some other travelers that do, that I've talked to. There are some banks that will take into account your stipends. They'll take into account the per diems that we get, because they understand that even though that's not technically income, it still obviously helps us pay our living expenses, which reduces the amount that we actually need from our income. You know, if we don't have to pay for food, housing, or incidentals, then you know our expenses that we have to use that income for are significantly decreased. So there are some banks that will take that into account. You just have to check and see which banks there are. I know that one of our recruiters had a loan officer that he works with specifically, that he sends all his travelers to that are trying to buy a house. So I do know they're out there, but not every bank will do that. It just depends.
Yeah, and I would be interested. I would bet that Joe Smith at Travel Tax would have some suggestions if you get into that situation, because it definitely is a tricky situation when it looks like on paper, you know, your AGI or your taxable income is pretty low. It looks like you don't make that much money, so then you might not qualify for a mortgage. So it's definitely a concern, but you know, I would definitely consult with Travel Tax. I'm sure they'd have some information about that.
Yep.
Jeff says, awesome job. All makes sense. Wasn't sure about the different state taxes, but Jared explained it well. And I know that was during the time that the video was breaking up. So hopefully you guys get that. But the gist of it is that the tax preparing software, if you do it yourself, will talk you through how to do the federal and then each state one at a time, and it does pretty well. Or the tax preparer will be able to take care of that for you.
So something I should mention, I forgot about this, is, like I said, you get a credit for what you paid into the state you're working towards your home state. One issue with that, though, is that you have to attach the return of that state you were working in to show that you paid the taxes there to your home state return. And with some filing software, that gets a little annoying, because basically you have to go to the end of the process, sign for that one state, save it as a PDF, and then upload it for the other state. And I've had some issues in the past trying to only sign one state and not sign the one that I need to attach the form to. But I mean, it takes a little bit of time to figure it out, but you do have to attach that, because if not, or you can also mail it in. You could print it and mail it later, which is an option. I just think that's a hassle.
Yeah, I remember lots of yelling at the laptop happening because it was like, it just wouldn't let you proceed to the next stage. Was it's like, okay, I need to print this page, but I have to attach it back on this step before I can print it. So worst case scenario, you can print the whole thing out and stick it in the mail. But you know,
yeah, the state just has to have proof that you actually paid that tax that you're claiming a credit for.
Yeah. Jeff wants to know, have you used Credit Karma? We've used Credit Karma for the credit score tracking, but not for filing taxes.
I saw that Credit Karma has free filing now, and that's probably pretty good. I haven't used it. I know the first year they did it, I saw some people were complaining about some of the results. They were saying they weren't getting accurate numbers, so be careful with it. But I think it was like 3 years ago when it came out, so chances are they've worked that out. But you know, just make sure if you have an easy return, enter it on 2 different sites just to make sure your numbers are the same. Obviously, if it's complicated, that might take a while. But if it's simple W-2, just enter it on 2, make sure it's the same number, and then if you can file it cheaper with Credit Karma, do that.
Okay, there's another question. Is it Ariel? I'm sorry if I'm saying your name wrong. Ariel wants to know, I just joined, so if you already talked about this, let me know. Can we claim the camper that we just bought for work? So she probably means as a write-off or as a deduction. And that would probably go, correct me if I'm wrong, basically they've changed the rules on that. Right? They changed where you can itemize using work deduction.
Well, no. Even so, a camper that you buy, you're using it for work, but you can't write that off, because it's the same as, like, the payment that you're making on the camper would be the same as the payment you'd be making to an apartment complex if you were doing short-term housing somewhere else. So it's not necessarily a deduction, and I guess your paying towards something that you wouldn't only use, you know, even though you're using it for work, you could still use it for vacation or whatever. So no, that wouldn't be a deduction.
Or kind of like a car that you drive to work.
At least that's
to-
my understanding. Like I
Yeah.
said, we're not tax professionals, so check with someone else. But no, I don't think that's a valid deduction.
Yeah, that's a different one. I haven't heard of that. Hey Mallory, thanks for joining. So if anybody else has questions that we can answer, please let us know. But again, like Jared said, we're not tax professionals. We're just physical therapists who have had some experience with filing taxes as travelers. So if y'all have questions, the ultimate resource that we usually go to is traveltax.com. They have a lot of frequently asked questions, Q&A type stuff on their website, articles, educational materials. They also do free phone consultations if you just have general questions. They don't charge you to just have a conversation and ask about information. If you are interested in having them prepare your taxes for you remotely, you can go on their website and look at their fees that they charge for that, or you can always work. Thanks, Cody. So you can always look for somebody locally, but they may or may not have a lot of knowledge on how it works as a traveler. Hopefully it's not too complicated. You just explain to them, look, I have these W-2s from these companies and I worked in a couple different states. Can you help me?
Yeah.
You know, but it's just going to be hit or miss who you get as far as a CPA or somebody to help you file your taxes.
Oh man, Naya just asked about if we can do a video for compact licenses.
Good
We were
question,
just
Naya.
talking about this in the car earlier, probably 2 hours ago. We haven't done it yet, but Virginia is eligible now, so we are thinking about applying for the compact privilege. So yeah, we probably will do a video on that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure when it'll be, but we will definitely do a video on that. At
We
some point.
did do one a few months ago explaining what the compact is, but we have not done an update on that because we haven't applied for one yet. But I actually did last night go through all the steps on there to apply for ours, and then I just didn't hit the payment button because I wasn't ready to do it yet. So I actually have some updated information on that, so I can help you out with that. Naya, is your state eligible yet? I think, is your home state Texas? Because I think
think it's
Texas is in it. So Naya should be good to go on that. Because PTs and PTAs are eligible.
Yep.
Cody says he has his compact license. Glad he did it and got his Louisiana license in just hours. That's awesome. That's cool. So we're getting a little off track here, but thank y'all for joining in. Again, if you got any value, if you learned anything tonight, we would love if you would give us a thumbs up on the video. That helps us to have more people to see the video. Again, we do these every Sunday night for the most part. So next week we'll be coming at you with a different topic.
And we would love any topic suggestions you guys have. We can always come up with something, but it's better if it's a question from you guys, something that you guys actually are wanting to know, and not something that we're just coming up with. So any suggestions you have, any questions you have, send them to us, and we can probably make a video about it.
Yep. Appreciate y'all. Have a good night.
Yep, take care.